stunning aerial footage showing the inferno growing stronger and stronger. Even firefighters fleeing from the scene, forced to leave their vehicles behind. That fire only 8% contained. Massive plumes of smoke filling the air as first responders attack the flames from the ground and from...
Firefighters can't stop the root cause of these massive fires. No, that's not correct either. There's a lot of like, it's called fuel, right? Dry vegetation and I don't know, like invasive vegetation in general that's like flammable. All of that, like communicating that to every single person in a at-risk area and ensuring that people actually take the proper steps ahead of time to make sure that they clear out their area, they clear out their neighborhoods of all of that flammable material is something that the fire department could communicate. The problem is, if we're already mismanaging funds, that's going to be an afterthought. Like that kind of stuff, the public-facing communication stuff, or the forced upkeep of supply lines, for example, like the power lines, ensuring that the brush and the vegetation that is overgrown on top of the power lines that are swinging wildly during wind seasons, like all of that is an afterthought because it's invisible until it becomes a massive problem. And even then, we still don't actually do enough power line maintenance, for example, because that's just how it works. That's just how capitalism works. It's easier for these utility companies to basically just, pay out the victims after a long and arduous legal process rather than, especially because there's no criminal punishments for the people responsible for this kind of cost cutting. It's much easier for them to just not do the maintenance and then pay off after the fact.
In the sky. It's just one of many wildfires scorching through California. At least 11 people dead, including, according to the New York Times, 80...
That's not true. Utility companies get into so much debt if they're having to pay big dollars in fire lawsuits. Okay, well, they've already done the math. They consider it to be better for their profit margins, especially if they're short-term focused. I hate to correct you, but it isn't cheaper to pay out after these disasters. Yeah, no, it's a short-term bet. You're right. Thank you. That's correct. It is a short-term bet. They're short-term profit seeking. So for them, they would rather ensure that they don't do the proper upkeep and hope that it never, gets out of hand. And then they end up getting bailed out regardless. So it doesn't matter because who's going to, there's no interest from any local or state official to actually take over these utilities usually, even after decades of mismanagement. So they're just like, all right, whatever. Oh, you did stock buybacks instead of proper upkeep with the additional funds that you had, even after increasing prices, for example. Well, all right, it's fine. It's not like we can take it over.
22-year-old Rodney Nickerson, retired pharmacy technician Erliane Kelly, and 66-year-old Victor Shaw, who stayed to fight the fire.
And I opened the front door and I just yelled in, "Victor, we got to get out. This is it. We have to get out. The fire's here." And I didn't hear him say anything. I heard him say nothing.
The authorities warning they won't know the true toll until they can safely enter those ravaged neighborhoods. In Altadena and Pasadena, the Eaton fire blazing on. The Hearst fire, the Lydia fire, the Kenneth fire, and the newest fire to break out, the Archer fire, also all still burning. Satellite imagery showing the extent of the destruction. Entire city blocks erased from the landscape. Streets lying silent in the aftermath. Burned out husks, the only things left standing. These before and after images painting a chilling picture of vibrant communities reduced to ash. Neighborhood after neighborhood burned to the ground. Residents slowly making their return, only to find out they've lost everything.
Look at that, there's nothing we can do. It's gone. This is total and utter devastation.
Charles Nelson, a longtime resident of Altadena, the fire decimating his home.
It's been it was our dream home.
A lot of people also don't understand that, like, the fire is more impactful than just like losing your shelter, which is obviously devastating. Your life is completely completely destabilized at that point. But more importantly than that, you lose remnants of your humanity, things that tie you to your loved ones, your prized possessions. Like, this is where you keep all of your things. It's not just your paperwork, you can replace that, but there are irreplaceable things that you have in your house, things that were left behind from your loved ones that no longer are with you, you know, things that connect you to them. John Mayer actually had a really good point on this. Here's what he said. This is the most valuable thing I own. It's a folder of photos of my father, spanning his life from being a baby, an educator, a husband, and a father. It's the only evidence of his life that will exist over time. These are the documents you read about people taking from their homes. When you hear someone say they've lost everything in a fire, this is much of that everything, if not all of it. Those who say they'll be okay still have their folders and their albums. Those who are inconsolable have lost them. Just behind the immeasurable loss of life is the loss of the proof of life. I don't practice prayer, but tonight I will say one for everyone who no longer has these items. It's not about the art and the collectibles. It's the photos, the letters, the class rings, the eyeglasses, and the things that we keep the things that we keep to remind us that those we loved were here. May those who have lost so much find some semblance of hope and support from their family and friends. Stay safe, look out for one another and yourself, and trust that humanity and all it entails, though sometimes hard to see, is alive and well. This is truly devastating. It's true. Like, when your house burns down in a fire, a lot of people immediately start thinking like, oh, well, you know, you're devoid of shelter. But like, outside of the material realities there is something immaterial, something infinitely more consequential for a lot of people. It's genuinely devastating. People don't realize that after the fire's over, there's a grueling, awful process that takes years sometimes to get these houses rebuilt. Yeah, just verifying who owns what is a whole nightmare. And then insurance companies come in before you're allowed to even go into the homes. That's just the start. Yes. There's also opportunists at every step. There are opportunists that have already started the real looting process. People who are, one, trying to immediately offer cash for the existing lots in people's weakest moments. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you have price gougers in the rental market. Come February 1st, this is going to be a gigantic problem in Los Angeles. If it's not combated adequately, you will see the housing market go out of control even more than it was. You are going to see the real looting, not the poor people that are messing around or are trying to take advantage of the crisis to steal a television or something, okay? The real looting will happen at the point of banks, private equity, and the real estate market. The real looting will also occur on the insurance side as well. Just remember that. But you will never hear about that in the news, okay? They'll maybe begrudgingly point to it every now and then. And it's already started, especially because the Pacific Palisades is like a relatively well-off neighborhood. A lot of the surrounding areas that have homes intact, single-family homes intact, are putting up rental properties that are double the already inflated rental market prices. If a single family home for like 6 people to 8 people is going for $10,000 a month normally, which is already insanely inflated, right? Now it's going for $30,000 a month. I've seen it. Here, I'll cover this as well. This is just the beginning of thread. Let me try to lay out what next 3 months is going to look like for the homeowners in LA who have lost everything in the fires. But before we do that, here is Fran talking about the impact this has had on her and her community.
This is your house?
This is my house. This one right here. We moved in 26 years ago. And we did the floors and we put in windows and doors and painted and just put, my grandchildren loved it. My son and my daughter-in-law, my family, we hosted Christmas Eve and Christmas Day here, and everybody was here. My little house that I loved. My husband just had his 4th cancer surgery. I poured everything into it. My nephew.
I'm so sorry.
I know.
I really am. I don't even know what to say.
That's okay. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just. We haven't been sleeping. We haven't slept. We're staying at a hotel. We have nowhere to go. We don't know what we're doing. We were close neighbors. Buzz and Todd. His mom passed away and they took over the house. John just lost his wife that he adored, but was taking care of that house. She was a Superior Court judge, and Beverly and John, so much love. She was so incredible. And the house is gone.
I just
And
can't
Tina,
believe they're all gone. Like
they're all gone. See, Debbie and us and Tina, our children went to school together from kindergarten. Our kids are in their 47 years old. And Debbie's 47-year-old son tragically passed away last August. Her oldest child. Her grief is so deep, I can't imagine.
The thing that I want to point out is that like the crisis will get significantly worse for people who have been impacted, because now they have a secondary crisis of tremendous amount of paperwork and the rebuilding process. And in that process, there are going to be some real looters. A lot of people look to the situation and go, oh, looters are actually going to come down and take advantage of this chaotic situation to steal the valuable possessions of people who have been fortunate enough not to be super impacted by these wildfires, to have their entire homes be burned into the ground. But the real looters are actually the predatory insurance companies that are going to do everything in their power to not pay you out, even though you gave them money, knowing full well that if the unthinkable happened, that you would be covered. The real looters are going to be real estate developers, private equity that come in and look to your most vulnerable moment and offer you like below market rates for the plot of land where the remains of your home are. They're going to try to seize as much of the real estate marketplace as fast as they possibly can. They're going to lowball you. This also plays along with the insurance companies, because the insurance companies are working to maximize their profits. And in a crisis like this, they're, going to only be able to do that by refusing all of your claims. And in that weak and desperate moment, you are going to have to make a very difficult decision. Do I just sell off my land instead of the tumultuous rebuilding process? The other looters are going to be the landlords, because you hopefully have a little bit of money, right, on the side. Insurance will kick in to pay your rent, for example, if you're fortunate enough. And the people that own numerous properties know that. So they will raise the price of rent, market conditions. That is the real looting that will take place. But that looting is invisible. That looting is only done through the normal process of capitalism, profit-seeking entities, faceless, lifeless corporations doing that looting.
And like this media truck coming in right now has been through, so they might recognize them and let them through. But the first time you come in here as a member of the media, or maybe anybody else too, they are looking at our press badges. They're being very serious about who they are letting in, because we know that the arrests have been made for people not following the curfew, or of course for people who are looting, which has been a major concern of so many of the residents that I've been speaking with.
Bro, I'm not kidding when I say this is disorder and more of a clear indication that we are at the verge of societal collapse. A normal, functioning, civilized society would not have these issues. You only have these fears when there is an unimaginable amount of wealth inequality, where people are so starving and so desperate that they're literally doing the most inhumane thing you can do, taking advantage of a natural disaster like this. And I also personally think that they're greatly overemphasizing the dangers of looting in an effort to do propaganda, in an effort to show that the National Guard and the police are actually valuable resources. Meanwhile, you got the actual valuable resources doing their very best to put out these fires, working around the clock. It's crazy. One of the coolest military sponsored projects with the federal government is the utilization of bomb droppers. I think it's called MAFS. It's so sick. MAFS C-130. They changed their payload from actual bombs into fire retardant material. MAFS equipped with C-130s join the fight against raging Los Angeles fires. They either do water drops or they just straight up deploy a payload with like water in it. Modular airborne firefighting system is what it's called. They take C-130s and they just bomb the fire. That is the appropriate usage of military equipment. MAFS unit's retardant is made up of 80 to 85% water, 10 to 15% ammonium sulfate, a gelling agent, and red coloring. The red in the retardant acts as a color code, helping pilots see where they have dropped previous loads. The retardant itself disperses as a mist, preventing damage to buildings. The MAFS crews participate in recurring annual training, with each unit required to have 5 certified personnel for the role. It's sick. C-130 aircraft fighting fire seen in the CNN video at 4:15. Dude, it's sick. Look.
Some other smoke trails as well. So they're They are trying to save this community. That is where the battle has been joined. A lot of air assets, trucks on the ground, fixed-wing aircraft like this.
There it is. Sir, yes, sir.
Wow.
We have tactically deployed the flame retardant matter, sir.
It is extraordinary to be standing here.
C-130s is going to be tactically making a landing. Before we get to I guess we can talk about the looting now as well here.
For looters out here, they have already arrested nearly 24 people inside evacuation areas. The National Guard has been brought in to bolster security, and some people have gone back home to try to defend what they have left. Chris Van Cleef has that from Altadena.
The sense of loss in Altadena is hard to describe. Destruction is everywhere. And then this island of 6 seemingly untouched homes saved by Pete Villani, who stayed behind to fight back the massive firestorm.
These are all my friends. These are all,
Once again, there's like 18 million people, and they've arrested, not charged, not convicted, just simply arrested under the suspicion of looting, 20 people. They say nearly 24 because the number is 20 so far. 20.
We're a family here. I love my neighbors. And it's like, you feel guilty because I survived. I couldn't save the whole block.
But even as he worked to put out hotspots, another threat emerged. Looters. He says he and a neighbor have chased off 2 groups attempting to break into the homes still standing.
What kind of person, what kind of human being would take advantage of somebody at that point? It's just like, I don't even want to say what I would do, but it's shocking.
Did you worry about your safety when you confronted the folks trying to get in that house?
No. I will say this. It would have been a bad day for them to do anything.
Do you feel like you're defending your neighborhood now?
Yep. That's why I'm here. This is why I stayed.
He's still standing watch even as the National Guard's armored vehicles are blocking evacuated neighborhoods and police are ramping up patrols.
Looting has zero tolerance. Looting or exploiting in the disaster areas will not be tolerated. Anybody caught looting or committing crimes in the affected area.
Like, I hope everybody understands, like, looting in a situation like this is completely unacceptable. Make no mistake. You have to be a real freak in dire circumstances to just be like, oh yeah, time for some free stuff. I'm gonna put my life at risk to go into smoldering ashes in these neighborhoods to secure like jewelry or I don't know, like a TV or something. It is completely unacceptable. Everybody understands this. My point when I cover this stuff is not necessarily to say looting is good, you should let it happen, even though many right-wingers will hear what I'm saying and immediately say, look at Hasan, he loves theft. My point is that the media greatly overemphasizes these stories for 2 reasons. One, because it is a panic narrative of crime that people are predisposed with, that people love laser focusing on. If it bleeds, it leads. And the other reason why they do it is because this justifies the additional police presence. That way, you don't think about why we're giving so much money to the cops and taking away money from firefighters. Bro, the Pacific Palisades was still on fire. The new district attorney went to his sister's destroyed house in the Pacific Palisades to cut a video talking about how he's gonna kill looters. It's like, bro, you're standing in front of your sister's burned down house, and that's what you got on your mind. You're like, oh, if you try to come here to my sister's burned down house, like, I'll freaking kill you. Looting narratives go crazy. They're protecting us from imaginary looters. Do you remember the news during Katrina? Yeah. Katrina was particularly deadly because people did actually, quote unquote, take matters in their own hands, and they just started shooting random black people under the suspicion that they were looting. Luckily, it hasn't gotten to that degree here in California, Los Angeles. I think there is a real reason for why police and even the National Guard must create a security perimeter around these disaster zones. That I get that. You do that specifically so that you can open up pathways for emergency vehicles in times of need. You can do that, or you must do that, to ensure that random people don't go back to their houses, and then that becomes an additional problem for the emergency services to deal with because now you have to rescue people. That makes sense. You can just say that and, be perfectly fine, but they have to overemphasize the looting aspect, okay? They have to consistently talk about how they're going to blow away any looter that even looks in the direction of a house, no matter how smoldering. What? Cops seem unnecessarily aggressive too?
I like that bed. I had
this is a YouTuber.
Purple pillow that Mel gave me. It was also very comfy.
Oh, it's earlier before the police confront him?
All right, here we go. We're gonna have to fabricate a bit of a story here to see if the cops will let us by. We're just gonna say that we're gonna swing by my house or what's left of it to grab my office keys if they're still surviving. That way I can actually have a place to stay for the night. So much ash.
Are they only letting one person in at a time, or what's the story? Let me get out and talk to him.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
He called for backup.
Okay.
Wow, he called for backup. Why is he putting his hand on his fucking gun?
They are telling us to go down. They're not super happy.
Oh, I gotta wait for them to go so I can turn around. I'm trying to.
Yeah, man, we're trying to do our job.
Okay, all right.
Don't drive past cones or anything else. Go.
Wow.
It does look like they're letting people walk up. They just don't want vehicles driving up the hill. So I think we're just gonna park and just go by foot.
Look how good the cops are, dude. I'm so glad that they're protecting and serving. They don't want the vehicles in there. For those of you who don't know, they don't want the vehicles in there because they don't want looters. That's it. Because they think that everyone that's coming in to the neighborhood with a vehicle is not actually people like this who just want to go through the rummage through their remains, but instead that they are all up to no good.
Oh, 1.5 miles to walk up this very steep hill before we get there. Quite a bit of scenery on the way.
Palisades median house price $3.5 million. This is not in the Palisades. This is Altadena, I think.
Like this broken power line that's been split in two.
By the way, this is like kind of sad, but the cops straight up in a matter of seconds proved the point I was making. If you're black or brown, especially so, just understand your house is burned to the ground. You're there to go back to the remains to see what you can sift through, okay, in the rubble. And you are faced with a complete dipshit who was ready to kill you on the spot for no reason. They just walk up to you, hand on their service weapon. You're like, oh, pull out now. Turn around now. It's like, what are you doing? What's happening here? What an insane situation.
And some lots are just completely leveled. This one just has a chimney. That's all that's left is a chimney. I mean,
the other part of this is like, this area is totally devastated. Like, what are looters going to loot in this area, man? Like, I get if there is an evacuation order placed upon certain areas where there's like homes that still remain, but this is like all ash. Like, what are they gonna? They're gonna loot the cinder? Oh man, I love free charcoal. You know what I'm saying?
I've passed by these houses 1,000,000 times, and some of them I've admired. You know, just looking at the front yards and how they did things and taking mental notes for future plans of my own house.
This is the one house that it was stayed intact.
Yeah, it's looking a little different today. Wires. Hopefully they've cut all the power to those, but better to be safe than sorry.
That was, or an RV.
It's all ash. Literally, the next house is lootable. Brother, there is one house that's standing. What are you talking about? You saw this entire neighborhood, and there is one house that is intact in the entire neighborhood. Looters are going to be hitting that one house. Is that what you think is going on? Do you think this is appropriate use of funds in that regard? 26-month subscriber. Still, anyone and everyone is actually always invested in looting. We have to hyper focus on this, okay? We have to make sure that this is the most. I like that you sat through me pausing and doing commentary for 20 minutes over this video to find the one house that's intact next to a house that is burned to the ground in an entire city block that is completely reduced to ash. And you're like, well, what if the people wanted to loot this house? You're right, man. What if? Is this a normal way to exist? I don't understand it. I feel like this is not city behavior, but I guess with the way that suburbs work, there's more and more people like this who operate with this mentality where they're constantly in a panicked situation where they're just like, because chatter, I don't know if you live in a city or not, but like anyone could technically walk up to you in the middle of the road and just put one in the back of your head. Anyone, literally anyone could do that right now. When you go outside to get groceries, someone could walk up to you and stab you to death. Do you think that that is a valid way to approach everyday existence? Do you think that that kind of panic is, I don't know, healthy? to have. The point is, especially if you live in a city, there's a certain level of danger that can always occur, but there's also a tremendous amount of safety that comes from being around other people. And if you've never lived in a normal city, it is impossible for you to comprehend this. That's the reason why when Austin stays with me and he hears constant police sirens on major roads, he freaks out. He just thinks like bedlam is happening, because in his neighborhood, if he constantly heard, in his suburb, if he constantly heard police sirens, something terrible must be happening. While the likelihood that you have a lot of people around you increases the likelihood that danger might come your way, there's also safety in being surrounded by other human beings.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah, all the way down pretty much.
I guess they are letting trucks in.
All right, this is good.
Okay, this is my next door neighbor's house.
Thank
Didn't
you.
make it.
Holy shit.
And my place.
Anyway,